Welcome to Agents Growth Academy. I am your headmaster, Jim Schubert. I hope you're ready to grow big or go home. Today, I'm super excited to have Steve Wiideman, who's going to talk about SEO strategy, and this is going to be a masterclass on SEO strategy. But before I talk about Steve, I do want to talk about MarbleBox because they have been a huge game changer for us, for our strategy when it comes to outsourcing things that are lower value tasks that don't add any value to the client experience. So I'm talking about things like doing your downloads from your carriers or agency bill transactions or all these little things that your licensed insurance agents don't need to be touching themselves because in theory, you pay them more to have that license, right? So we've saved literally hundreds of hours, and I'm talking like literal hundreds of hours over the last few months. We're just about to add our fourth MarbleBox quote unquote employee, somebody who's outsourced, who's going to learn these workflows and do them for us. And what that's allowing us to do is free up a ton of time on the rest of our service staff and our salespeople to not have to worry about all that minutia that they shouldn't be dabbling in themselves because they're licensed and they're more valuable than doing that kind of stuff. So check them out, marblebox.com. Super excited to be a partner of theirs. So let's talk about Steve. Steve is specializing in strategic planning for multi-location and franchise brands. He does this under the Wiideman Consulting Group. He considers himself a scientist, which I heard him talk off air a lot about nerding out, and maybe that's why he calls himself a scientist and a practitioner of local and e-commerce search engine optimization and paid search advertising. He's the author of SEO Strategy Skills, which is a college textbook through Stukent. I think I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Stukent. Wiideman has personally played a role in the inbound successes of brands that have included, you might know some of these, Disney, Linksys, Belkin, Public Storage, Honda, Skechers, Applebee's, IHOP, Dole, and others. Many of the mentioned projects with an emphasis on strategy, planning, and campaign oversight. While serving as an adjunct professor at UCSD and CSUF, Steve's also building the Academy of Search while volunteering time to help improve transparency and industry standards as an agency trainer. Steve, welcome to Agents Growth Academy, my friend. How you doing?
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me. Now, can you say all that backwards? Right?
Oh my gosh, no. I'm not gonna.
Thank you so
Can't
much for
make
having
me.
me. And I know we talked. You talked a lot about some of the brands we work with, but we're gonna try to tailor this as much as we can to support agents and agencies and an effort to try to get more visibility in search engines when people are looking for business insurance. So we'll do what we can to try to provide advice that's tailored to the industry as we can. But there are fundamentals as we get into it, and I'll walk through some of those and some specific things that businesses should pay attention to and what a timeline might look like and what to expect out of folks that are working with you to get more visibility in search engines. And maybe we'll provide some freebies and some downloads and some access to things that can help deepen the rabbit hole of learning available to you.
Love that. Looking forward to digging into that. More important than that, though, before we start, I was browsing through your LinkedIn. Were you just at the Mouse House with your family, or was that somewhere else? Looked like could have been Russia. I don't know. With big castle glowing in the background.
Oh yeah, we've been a lot of places this last year. I was fortunate to be invited to the G50 summit in Austria, and we started at Oktoberfest, and then we got to head over to this really nice resort with 50 of the smartest SEOs in the industry, and it's one of those things you have to get nominated to be part of, and it was fortunate that I was able to take my family with me since my kids are graduating this year and next year. So it's kind of a neat little double win of, hey, let's get some time together as a family, and during the day I'll be with a group of nerds and sharpen the skill, if you will.
That's
but yeah,
awesome.
we've
So
been
it
all over the
was
place. Then we're
you were in Europe, not at Disney World.
So if there's a Disney World picture on there, it's likely because we go almost every other year. I actually, my mom My parents live right across the street from Disneyland. So as a
Awesome.
kid, I got to come home from school, throw my backpack on, and go do my homework over at the Disney park back in the day. So can't do that today because of reservation systems and the
Yeah,
high cost of it all. But it was a neat little way to be spoiled as a teen, to have a fun and vibrant environment to study in, you know?
that's awesome. I'm curious
Yeah.
before we dig into some of the strategy. You mentioned other nerds that were invited to the summit.
Yes.
Was one of them Neil Patel?
Mm. He had been part of that in the past, yes.
Okay.
He wasn't there this time, but yeah, he was part of it.
Okay. I don't know if you've ever met him. I used to love geeking out over his content that he put out when I was learning
He's
SEO
such a great guy.
strategies back in the
Yeah.
day. I know
He
he's
was on my
involved in a lot of different
podcast
things now.
last year. Yeah. So we
Yeah.
we got to hang out a little bit, and he was nice enough to do a guest speaking event for my students. So we
Cool.
brought him in and let the students ask questions, and you could see his kids in the background while we were chatting. And then recently he just purchased one of the tools I'm going to recommend as we get into the strategy part. So he's still doing his thing as an entrepreneur, more
Yeah.
so than just the SEO component of what he does for our industry, but just super guy. You're right,
That's
100%.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
cool, man. Okay, now I'm ready to nerd out, especially since you know Neil, or rather, Neil knows you. He's lucky.
Uh, no,
All right, let's
the
talk
best.
about some of these strategies for SEO and
Sure.
thinking about how insurance agency owners, insurance agents can use these.
Of course. Yeah, and digital marketing as a whole, right, feels overwhelming because there's all these different things that you could be paying attention to. And in our world of digital marketing, we call them mediums, right? What are the mediums that are available to us as we start promoting our business? There's paid advertising, right? Google ads and Bing
Mhm.
ads and Yelp ads, right? There's ways that we can pay those different destinations to put an ad up and hopefully get some business out of that. I would recommend doing that either way, whether you're doing the organic stuff we're going to talk about
Yeah.
or other mediums. But paid allows you to see specific information about people who are coming to the website, learn about which types of customers convert or visitors convert into customers, learn about what words they searched. That ended up them becoming a customer. So you can take those words and turn it into an organic strategy. So I think paid is one way. Email marketing, right? Sending out emails and collaborating with other folks that have email lists to get, in front of people via email. There's, native advertising and ways that we can create content on other websites to and pay for that content to be published on like New York Times or whatever and drive
Mm.
them back in. There's remarketing. They visited your websites and and they didn't convert into a customer or fill out a form. You want to bring them back. You can remarket through through ads on these different platforms, through content networks. You see the ads by Google across the internet. Um, the biggest I'd say the biggest traffic driver, if you look at your own web analytics, is always going to be organic.
Mhm.
Organic is the number one driver of all traffic to your website. And the odd part about it, it's the one that's less paid attention to, partly because there isn't a set rule book on what to do, how to do it, and a roadmap that you would follow. Every SEO consultant, agency, freelancer has their own way of addressing search. So it feels overwhelming. Like I know it's the biggest traffic driver, but I don't know where to start. I don't know who's good at it. I don't know if this company or this agency is going to get me in trouble by doing something they shouldn't.
Mm.
So they tend to not put any time or effort into it. Others will hire a dedicated SEO specialist, and that SEO specialist will do SEO, but oftentimes without a strategy, without a roadmap, without a timeline of things, without any sort of organizational system or project management system to track and manage and monitor and measure their results. So that's where we get into, well, what goes into how do we appear in Google Maps and in web results? And there's really only three components you have to pay attention to. When somebody suggests something that you could do to improve your visibility in Google, you ask them, does it fall into one of these three buckets? Bucket one is how relevant the content is to the user who's performing the search. And
Mm.
this is a fun one because when I ask the question of what keyword are you trying to rank for, and somebody says, "Oh, business insurance agent." Great. Well, what page on your website do you have optimized to rank for that keyword? and suddenly a light bulb goes off, and it's like, oh, I need to create a page on my website that includes that keyword, because the homepage is really more about your brand, your company name,
Yeah.
your business entity, as Google's knowledge graph is, learned over time to recognize. So we want to create a dedicated page. When somebody has a question around what are some different business insurance I need, do you have a page that solves, those questions that people have? So number
Yep.
one is relevancy. Two is visibility. It's other websites voting for your brand, for your website, mentioning your brand, linking to your website. Larry Page, back in from Google, back in 1998, created this page rank algorithm, and basically it said, instead of being Yahoo and at the time MSN and so forth, we're not going to just use on page ranking factors. We're going to use off page ranking factors. So in a way to sort of look at a voting system. So if other websites are linking to us, they're essentially voting for us,
Mm.
and we'll get higher ranking, even if our
Yeah.
content isn't as keyword rich as some of the more optimized pages. So they use that system, and it's always been a huge focal point. The third thing is how users are interacting with our listing in search results. And that is, are they clicking on our listing because we stand out, because we've got rich results with perhaps FAQs or star ratings or an image or a video thumbnail? What makes our listing stand out that would make somebody want to click on it? Are we invoking title tag principles? And I have an article up on Google. If you search title tag principles, you can see those three things are really simple. Do we have a call to action, the keyword we want that page to appear for, and a unique selling proposition, right? And the example is, use these um, title tag principles to improve CTR and SEO ranking, because I know the person who's searching title tag principles could care less. What they're trying to do is they're trying to increase their keyword rankings. So use being the call to action, title tag principles being the keyword, and improve CTR, click through rate, and SEO ranking is that selling proposition. That's what stands out, solves the intent of the query, or as Google calls it, things not strings. So when somebody does ask and they say, hey, what are you doing for SEO? I can do this, this, and this. You ask them, is it bucketed into me becoming more relevant, more visible off the website, or improving my click rates? And they're like, oh, it's just some magical thing we do. It just works. Run away. If they can't be transparent about what
So
they're
if
going to
they
do,
can't
and
explain it, yeah,
yeah,
run away.
yeah, so it's not a secret sauce. It's
Yeah.
it's something that Google's very transparent about in all their free guides they have at web.dev and webmaster tools. It's just organizing and prioritizing, and continuously improving in those three areas. So as a business, you ask yourself, hey, are we improving organic search? Um, I don't know. Are we doing the three things every month that we should be, or paying attention to them? Are we improving our relevancy based on how people are searching for what we offer? Are we improving our visibility off the website? And are we improving, our user behavior signals and becoming the final destination that, a user chooses in the search results? And if you're
Yeah.
not paying attention to those three areas, eventually your rankings might go away, or the rankings you hope to achieve may never happen. So I think
Yeah.
fundamentally those are some things to keep in mind as you're asking why I'm not appearing for a search term. But I think the big question is, well, what do I need to do to address those three things, right? And so what we try to advocate for is like a 12-month plan, right? Whether you're a small business, a multi-location business, whether you're just an insurance agent who has, their own little kind of microsite to draw in new customers who are performing searches, put a plan together. And because SEO isn't advertising, it's marketing, it could take months and months and months to
Mm.
unroot a number one listing that's been there for years and years, and that Google's trusted for years and years. And you want to show them that you're a better result, it's going to take some time. So I would
Yeah.
expect that the content that you're going to create is going to take at least 3 months to show up somewhere on the second or third page of Google.
Yeah.
The links that you earn to that content, it's going to take another 3 to 6 months, to show Google that you're becoming more popular. And the history of people choosing you over that top ranking listing, more so than that top ranking listing over time, could take another 3 to 6 months. So I would expect for some of these competitive keywords that you're going after, it could take 6 months to a year at least. So having that patience and knowing that when you look back, in a year from now, and you're like, wow, I'm really glad I didn't give up. I'm really glad I stayed to it, because now, now we're in the top three search results. I'm getting phone calls and email inquiries, and it's working, and I can build a forecast of what I can expect to get now that I know that I'm in the top search results. So the strategy, that 12-month plan, starts with a technical audit of your website. And there's tons of free tools that you could use to do that. There's paid tools like SEM Rush and RYTE, RYTE, that you can use. You can go to an SEO consultant practitioner and ask them, hey, can you run me a technical SEO audit? Maybe ask 2 or 3 of them and take those common themes between the three and say, here's where I want to prioritize the technical items. Take that big list, go out to Upwork or to Rent-A-Coder. Codeable.io is one that we use a lot, and then ask and say, hey, here's what I got for my technical SEO audit. How much would you charge me to take care of these items? Like, well,
Yeah.
there's all these page experience and security and privacy, and here's how long it's going to take and how much it's going to cost. And then you knock that stuff out, and now your site can be crawled and indexed by search engines and hopefully play a role in the ranking. But if you haven't thought about the content or how other websites are linking to you, that one effort alone just makes it sort of qualified to rank, right? You become search engine friendly, not optimized for search, as my old boss at Disney used to say. And so the next thing you want to look at is, hey, where do we get other websites to link to us? What do we do? And we have kind of a two-step process for that. Step one is, let's look at the links we already have and how many of them are going to pages that are now a 404 error, and let's redirect those URLs to the newest, latest page, or create a new one if needed. Let's look at our internal links using some of these tools like SEM Rush, and there's another one called Screaming Frog that's I think it's like $150 to use.
Yeah.
Crawl the website, find out as a web crawler where they're finding 404 errors, and update those links so that Google's not seeing the 404 errors.
Yeah.
And then let's figure out where the competition have been earning links. Use a tool like Ahref and run what we call an intersecting link audit. And then we
Yep.
find where all of our competition have been out there. And by the way, when you do this at scale, if you take 20, 30, 50 insurance agents that focus specifically on business and you do this exercise, you'll find sites that drive relevant industry traffic as much as they support the SEO. So not only will you get that great vote from that Google page rank, but you'll also get some great referral traffic from it. The last part is going to be the creative side. What can we put on our website that's going to attract links so that I don't have to have somebody picking up the phone and sending emails all day saying, will you link to me?
Yeah.
Instead, what we do is we create something that we know is helpful to the industry, a calculator, a tool, free forms, templates, just anything that maybe we do some research and come up with some data that's really helpful. Maybe we solve problems, and I'll get to that on the content side a little bit more, but let's create something that's evergreen that we know people will link to. My favorite examples of what's worked for some of our clients: Veterans Day promos. When we ran a Veterans Day promo for a major restaurant chain, we got links from va.gov,
Oh wow.
military.com. We got some
Yeah.
really influential links that drove great referral traffic, brand awareness, and
Yeah.
huge amounts of voting power from those links.
Wow.
Another one would be Progressive used to do a Dress Like Flo campaign for October for Halloween. So if you wanted to dress like Flo from Progressive, you could go to this page and download, different assets and name badges and all sorts of cool things and be Flo. And so people would link to them from Halloween related websites, and it was a really neat link campaign.
Yeah.
So there's lots of those kind of things. You can also Google link bait ideas and find tons of content in search results on to inspire what you're going to do. The next part, and probably the most challenging, especially for a business insurance agent, is going to be the content strategy, because there are a lot of 800-pound gorillas in the space that have been doing SEO for years and years and years. And if
Yeah.
you want to create something better than what they've done, you've really got to put some effort into it and some creativity. But the first place that I would start is I'd go out to all those different competitor websites. I'd add a forward slash at the end of the URL and put in sitemap.xml in that address bar in your browser. And what that's going to do is give you a big list of every single page that your competition has created, most likely in an attempt to drive organic traffic, and then start to put a content roadmap together for yourself of what content that you could be creating that's going to solve problems and drive new visitors to your website. And then there's some tools that you could use as well. One that I was alluding to a little bit earlier when we talked about Neil Patel and solving problems is something called answerthepublic.com. If
Oh
you go to
yeah, I've
answerthepublic.com and you
used
put
that
in
recently
business.
actually.
Yep. And put in business insurance as a word, start broad. You're going to find a lot of questions, that people have. Who,
Yep.
what, when, how, where, ideas, strategies, tips, all sorts of neat ideas. Take all those keywords, combine the ones that are similar, that have the same user intent, and then just create that content roadmap in whatever task management system you want to use, whether it's Microsoft To Do or our favorite, Monday.com.
Mm.
You load those tasks up, assign someone on your team or a third party content writer, and you start writing really great content. But make sure part of that writing process means looking at the current search results, study the headings and the subheadings that are used
Mm.
on the pages that already appear for those keywords so that you're introducing your point or perspective on topics that Google already thinks is relevant to what the user is searching for with that query. Make sure that the type of content that you're using is as good or better than those competing pages. So maybe you'll find a table of data on one of those competitor pages. Maybe you'll find an image or a graphic or a video. Let's make sure we're doing all those things and better than
Yeah.
those competing listings. And if we're targeting a local area, make sure that local area is part of your entire content strategy. So don't just put business insurance agent. If you're just targeting Southern California, put Southern California business insurance agent. Make
Yeah.
sure that that's there so that Google knows to display it for localized queries, and so that the user knows that you serve their area. So make sure that you're thinking about that geographical targeting in all of your content strategy. So first, as I mentioned, look at the competition, look at the keywords that they're targeting through their sitemaps. Look at problems that people are trying to solve using something like Answer the Public. Draw that content roadmap together, and then, the keywords that correspond to those pages, make sure you're tracking them with some sort of a tracking tool so that you know whether you're growing and improving, and have some specific KPIs around them, such as average position, share of voice. Maybe there's 20 competitors in our area that we're going after. What's our share of voice for a specific type of business insurance, that content segment, that specific audience that we're going after? Maybe we have 11% share of voice and the 800-pound gorilla has 20, and the neighbor who's been beating you in search for a while has 16. Let's set a
Mm.
KPI goal for 2024 to have it, to take 4% of that share of voice away from the competition for that content segment.
Yeah.
So putting those together can be a great way to continuously monitor every month and see how we're performing. The last piece of what would go into this whole SEO strategy, specifically for those targeting a dedicated area, would be around local SEO. So that
That's what
local
I was going to
SEO
ask you about.
component,
Okay, good.
really really important. If you're helping any business across the country, probably not going to be as relevant, but you can still create geographical targeted pages even if you're
Hmm.
nationwide. You could create a page for Los Angeles, business insurance, and
Hmm.
target people using a really strong landing page specifically for that query and that geography. But if you are only targeting a city like Los Angeles or Orlando or Miami, then we want to make sure that we're paying attention to Google Maps as much, if not more, than where we are in organic, because Maps always shows up right above the organic search results.
Yep.
And the majority of the clicks, in many cases, for localized queries, particularly on mobile devices,
Mm.
is going to be in the maps. So there's
Yeah.
4 areas that we pay attention to in that strategy, and that's making sure our business data is accurate across every place it needs to be. And you can help kind of manage that by making sure that you're in databases like Localese or Data Axle or Foursquare. Starting with those data aggregators, making sure that your information is correct, because those databases get used by business directories to
Mm.
validate information. So
Yeah.
knowing that you're there. Now, if you have multiple locations, you can use some tools to manage your business data at scale, because going into each of those manually and spending $50 per listing or whatever can be really expensive. So
Yeah.
there are platforms that give you a bit of a discount on that. So depending on how many locations you have, you might use a tool like Whitespark.ca. You might use BrightLocal. You
Mm.
could use Moz Local if you're a small business. And again, if you're a larger enterprise and you've got hundreds of locations, you might use something perhaps Rio SEO or Yext or Bird Eye, right? Some really good tools that are out there. Soshi is another one. So there's a great, there's a lot of tools that make it really easy to manage your business data. Part two is going to be the location pages. So if you've got more than one location, let's make sure you have a page for each one. And I'll give you some examples. I mentioned we work in restaurant chains. My favorite is IHOP. If you do a search where in any city where there's an IHOP for breakfast delivery IHOP or breakfast delivery in the city name, breakfast takeout in the city name, breakfast specials, you're going to find content that we've created underneath each location that satisfies those searches. So we've got a delivery page, subpage, a takeout subpage, a special subpage. I think we just did catering as well. So we appear now because we created content underneath each location. Now we're talking about 1,600 locations times 4 subpages. That's a lot of content. So there's
Yeah.
going to be some work to do if you've got a lot of locations to make each page unique and helpful. And there's attributes. We actually performed a study of over 300 locations about a year and a half ago, um, to understand what are the key components of our local page to help us to rank. It's on our website. I'm sure you'll share it later, but when you go to our website, the very first link is this local SEO study, and it shows hyperlocal content having like 107% competitive advantage over a competitor who doesn't. Local images, pictures of the location itself on the page, which you'd be surprised how many don't have that.
Yeah.
Things like reviews and directions and a Google map, right? All of those attributes, those focal points, give us a uniqueness that our competitors aren't paying attention to. The third
Yeah.
of the four things is our data visibility. So before we talked about accuracy in databases, now we want to make sure that our information is everywhere. Similar to how web search works with links, business citations or directory listings work in the same way, sort of like Pac-Man going through and collecting power pellets everywhere. The more Googlebot as Pac-Man finds those citations of your business information, the more relevant they think you are off the website, and the more trust they have that you're going to be a good result for their searchers. So we start, of course, with search engines like Google and Google Business Profile and Bing Local and Yahoo, right? And then we look at some of our navigation engines like Apple Maps and MapQuest and Nokia here, and make sure that our information is in those places. And then we get into these social locals like Yelp and Facebook and Foursquare, which we mentioned is also a data aggregator, to make sure that we're in those places, because that's where a lot of people search from their apps to make sure. Like I have a Yelp app and I use it. I have a Yelp app and I'm not afraid to use it. And then we get into the really super competitive piece of it. That whole list that I just gave you is an easy syndication list for most of those platforms that we talked about. But to really go beyond that, you'll want to find your local city chamber, your local business directories that are in your area.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about like Los Angeles.merchantcircle.com. We're talking about like Los Angeles, .gov or Los Angeles.org/businesses.
Yeah.
Getting into those real localized directories, because they will drive some very small amount of referral traffic, and they are very super relevant. Whereas some of these broader directories, like I mentioned, Merchant Circle or GetFrog, Hot Frog or GetFave, nobody really goes to those sites, so they're not
Right.
really going to get crawled as much, and they're not going to send really good traffic to. So
Yeah.
thinking out of the box about how we get other websites to share our business information, maybe even a local blogger. Hey, I saw that you blogged about life insurance in one of your posts. We actually do some business insurance stuff. We'd love to talk to you about, maybe we can do a guest post for you and share what local businesses should be thinking about, as the city's as it relates to the city's requirements for insurance. In
Yeah.
fact, we'll do the whole content for you. Just post it, right?
Yeah.
And that
Link
last
back to
piece.
us.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And link back to us.
Right, maybe if we're lucky. The last part of the local piece is going to be around reputation, and I always say it this way because nobody clicks on a 1-star review, right? So the way I like to look at it is we're paying attention to 3 different variables. We're looking at the quality of the ratings that are coming in, the quantity, and the velocity. So even if our quality is really good, and the quantity of reviews is good, if our competitor is getting more reviews than we are month over month, in a year from now, they're going to displace us. So we want to make sure that the quality, quantity, and velocity of the ratings and reviews that we're getting in Google My Business, in Yelp, in Facebook is always exceeding that of the competition. If we're paying attention to those 4 areas every month and holding our teams accountable and asking, what did we do this month to make sure our data was accurate? What did we do this month to make sure that our local page is getting better and is more helpful than our location pages of the competition? What are we doing every month to make sure that our business information is getting shared off our website more often? And how did we improve the quality, quantity, and velocity of our ratings and reviews versus the competition? If we do that every month consistently, in a year from now, you're guaranteed to beat the competition. There's no way, if addressing all 4 of those areas for local, that a competitor is going to beat you if you've got your eye on the ball. Because sometimes competitors rest on their laurels. They're like, I'm a big 800-pound brand. People know who we are. I don't need to worry about it. And then the next day they see that you flanked them because you paid attention while they, again, rested on their laurels. So
Yeah.
those are the main components of a local search strategy. And yeah, we can get into things like e-com, SEO, and whatever. But I think from a relevancy standpoint too, all those amazing insurance agents out there struggling to get the phone to ring, I think paying attention to those specific strategies for the next 12 months could be a strong foundation for you to, really excel. So that next year, if we do another one of these next year, everyone will be like, yeah, I remember we went through all those things and I'm already at 10,000 visits a month from Google and, 2,000 from Bing, where I was at, a fraction of that a year ago. I think that's
Yeah.
the goal, right? Yeah.
Wow. Man, you covered a lot. I made a ton of notes here. That was awesome. There's so many different directions
You
we
asked
could
for the
go, and
master
we only
class.
have so much time. I think if I'm putting myself in our audience's shoes, I might be thinking, all right, Steve, you just gave us a ton of stuff. What's the one thing that if I walk away today and implement is going to potentially give me the biggest bang for my buck?
I think solving problems. I think if you solve your customers' problems, whether you're using Answer the Public or just reaching out to your current customers and saying, what are some questions you have? Go to your customer service people if you have somebody and ask, what are the questions that we get from people who are businesses that are inquiring around insurance? And do we have a page of content that answers that better than any other page that, that competes with it? Can we add a video? Can we add a chart, a design, something to really make our page unique? Did we get an expert review of the content on the page by another expert? Um, just really making sure that our page stands out and we're solving all the problems that potential customers we've already talked to have when they're talking to us. I think that's the one thing that I would do is just start solving those problems, and you'll look back in a year from now, it's like, wow, those 40, 50 pages that we put up on the website are driving new customers. Let's create more, or let's make them better and move from the 9th result to the 3rd result by 2025.
You just made my year, man. The reason for those who are watching this, I'm smiling so big right now is because I have spent so much time on this podcast talking about how agents need to do a better job of simply solving people's problems. I've talked over and over about adding value before you ask for anything in return. And that's brilliant because from a search standpoint, you're right. If you're solving problems from the get-go and people, like you said, using a tool like Answer the Public, people are already asking the questions. Yeah. You go to that website, and if you've never done that, by the way, if y'all are listening to this, go to is it answerthepublic.com or?
Yep. Answerthepublic.com.
It's fascinating because it literally, it puts it in just, it gives you all the things that people could potentially be searching for that are already being asked. And
start this page. I'd say start this one. Start one that says business insurance requirements and city name. All right, that's the key word, and that's the page that you'll want to create on your website. If you're in a specific city, create a page on your website that says business insurance requirements Los Angeles or wherever you happen to be located, and build out that page. I think that's where I would start, and I think that's where they're probably going to get the most potential prospects, because these people haven't already paid for insurance. They want to know what the requirements are, and they want to know in the city that they're doing business in.
That's a good one. And I might even take it a step further and say, for those of us who niche down into particular things like, commercial trucking or hotels or restaurants or whatever it is, maybe even add in, like maybe make it restaurant insurance requirements for Atlanta, something like that. Even yeah. Wow.
100%.
Okay,
Great idea.
that was golden. That was golden. I can't, I don't think I could have asked for a better takeaway from all that. That
You're
was
like,
fantastic, and I'm
we're
going to
gonna
give
try
you a
to.
chance to kind of cap things off in a minute.
Sure.
I could sit here and ask questions all day, but like I said, only so much time we have, and I want to get to know you a little bit more. So let's head to the rapid fire round. I want to ask you,
Sure.
what's one piece of technology or software you can't live without on a daily basis?
Ooh, I'd say SEM Rush, the biggest. We live and breathe in that tool.
Yeah.
It allows us to look at all those different disciplines we talked about earlier: tech, content, links, tracking, KPIs, share of voice. It's where we kind of live and breathe every day here. Um, that would be the biggest. The second to that would probably be a tool called RYTE, RYTE, which helps us to do a really deep dive, inclusive crawl of a website and really uncover some things that could be causing indexing or ranking issues.
Awesome. What about one book that you're reading now or that you've read recently and you want to share with folks?
I think Cal Newport's Deep Work is probably one of my favorites. It really helped me unplug from social media on my mobile device and um, accomplish at least 30% more than I did when I was distracted by small things.
Yeah.
So that's probably my favorite.
Oh, I love that. I've been struggling a lot with that recently, and I even, those who have been listening long enough heard me talk about Tommy Breedlove and his whole mission of helping people be more present with each other, and that's a big thing,
Right.
kind of like
I
Cal
love
talks
that.
about. Is just how do you how do you be present not only with other people but with yourself, like you're saying, trying to get things done and
Uh-huh.
not be distracted by everything. So
Hundred
that's a
percent. Which
that's
actually reminds me of two things I like to
yeah.
use a lot. One is the Wim Hof method. Wim Hof is this, they call him the Iceman. And he's got this really cool program that teaches you how to take breaks and to breathe and
Mm,
meditate and in some cases even help fight off disease by just being um, focused.
yeah.
And then second is this thing called Superhuman, and Superhumans is incredible site that Lee Holden has created where he's interviewing gurus around the world on enlightenment and awareness um, and health. It's a super cool way to sort of sharpen the saw every day and to be part of that whole savers idea, right? The sleep and awareness and vision and that whole thing. So um, anyway, those are two things that I love it that stem from the same idea of just being present. So
That's
I love where you're
awesome.
going with it. Yeah.
I got Superhuman. What was the? How do you? What was the
Wim
first one?
Hof, Wim, and last name Hof,
Okay.
Hof, Wim Hof. It's called
Oh,
the Wim Hof Method.
awesome.
Guy's amazing, and he's got tons of stuff on YouTube that you'll get a kick out of.
Cool. Awesome.
Character.
All right. What advice would you give to your younger self? I always love asking this one.
Ooh, I would pick the niche of the niche of the niche. I broadly chose SEO when I started, and had I had been as smart as some of my peers like Darren Shaw and Joy Hawkins and Mike Blumenthal, I would have focused specifically around an area like local search or Google Maps. Um, so I would find where the demand is right now in your industry. If you're a digital marketer and you got this because the agency you're working for is like, you got to listen to this. The niches that I would be thinking about right now are voice search and getting into the whole Google Action Console and
Hmm.
Alexa skills. Maybe not. Maybe it might be going away, but
Yeah.
the Google Google Home and Google Assistant is definitely not going anywhere. I'd
Yeah.
also look at structured markup. The internet's getting to be a more structured, smarter database of things as opposed to the wild west of HTML
Hmm.
and text flying everywhere. It's getting organized. So structured markup enables us to turn our websites into more structured data segments that search engines can interpret, understand, and create more rich results with, and
Hmm.
can put into their whole entity knowledge graph that they have to better understand exactly when you say, this is business insurance. They'll know exactly what you mean by it because you've structured it in such a way that it corresponds to the business insurance entity that they have in their system. So I'd look at, if I were the younger me, and it was today, I would say, hey, I'm going to get into the areas that people are still struggling with. Structured
Yeah,
markup, voice search in our industry. Maybe for business insurance, there's some new things coming, right? Or there's some areas of business insurance that that nobody wants to do because it's difficult, and it's really hard to do. Master it and be the best at it, and you'll get referrals from the other guys that don't want to do it. You know,
absolutely. I mean, there's people I know that are doing a really good job of that from a workers' comp standpoint, because it can be
right?
very difficult, especially when you're talking about, um, working with mods and trying to lower a mod. For those who are listening, know what that is.
Yep.
Or even the realm of cyber liability. Even though cyber liability has been around for a few years, probably 10 or 15 at this point, there's still so many people that are just not focusing on that. And it's becoming, I mean, literally open the news on your phone, look anywhere, and every single day there's another example of why people need cyber liability. So,
Yep.
yeah,
That's a
good,
great idea. I love
good
that,
call
and
that.
it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely not. Unless we all get hit by an EMP and everything goes out.
Yeah, we won't. We don't
Um,
want to. We won't talk about the future with all the political war things going on. We just
no,
live day
please.
by day right now.
Right, exactly. Let's. I'm curious from a taste standpoint. If I gave you the choice between a hot bowl of soup or hot chocolate and marshmallows, what would you choose?
Ooh, depends on what time of day. If it's the evening, marshmallow for sure, because that's a perfect dessert. But I'm a big soup fan. I love chicken noodle soup. It's just a comfort food for me. So I'd
Oh,
say if it were afternoon, I'd go for the soup. If it was evening, I'd go for the chocolate.
oh, so you're the first person that hasn't had like a strong conviction. You put a timestamp on it. All right, you got to choose one. What are you going to choose?
Oh, chocolate for sure. Yeah.
Hot chocolate, marshmallows. I'm
Yeah.
going to send you some from our friends at mountainmallow.com. We
Oh,
discovered them when we
amazing.
were out in, I think we were out in Vail a few years ago, my wife and I, and they've got just like gourmet marshmallows, huge marshmallows, and
Oh
it's
man,
really
that
delicious hot
sounds
chocolate.
amazing.
So I'll get your address off air and I'll send you some.
Thanks.
But yeah, you will love it, my friend.
That's super thoughtful. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve, before we wrap it up, what's one final piece of advice based on what we talked about today, or actionable step that you'd leave with everybody?
Sure. I would say the best thing that you could do if this idea of search engine optimization is interesting to you is talk to somebody with a few decades of experience. It doesn't have to be me, right? There's other experts that are out there that that consult for brands and love to help. So I would say start by getting into some of those Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups and ask some questions and say, hey, I'm thinking about putting a strategy together. Any ideas? And a lot of times these consultants, these experts will just lay it all out for you in the same way that we talked about a strategy today. So before you have to figure out, hey, I'm gonna learn all this stuff myself and do it all myself, which you can. I talk to somebody who's already done it to help put a timeline and a a plan together. And if you want to learn it, I do have a site like you mentioned called Academy of Search. Use code SEO Steve at academyofsearch.com and you get free access to my $600 course. It's mimicked a bit off of my course at Cal State Fullerton. We're going to be refreshing it in the next few months, but for now, because it's there and I want to share it, just use SEO Steve and you can check it out and go through all the different things we talked about today: technical SEO, content strategy, links, and tracking. And all I ask is to give me some feedback. What do you think? What would you like to see changed? And but for now, if you want to give that to your webmaster, and have them start doing some SEO, go for it.
Oh, that's awesome. Very generous of you, sir, to give that. I appreciate that.
My
Steve,
pleasure.
if people want to get more of you in their lives or learn a little bit more about what you've talked about today, where should they go? Is it what you just told us or some other places?
Sure. Well, if you want to be, if you're in the social space and you want to chat on LinkedIn, I'm just LinkedIn/in/slash SEO expert. But on all the other social channels, I'm SEO Steve everywhere. Our team is Wiideman, Wiideman. We love to solve problems and help people. So if you've got something you want to share on social, if you want to email me, my email is just steve@wiideman.com. Wiideman.com. I'm happy to answer any questions or solve the mystery of why you're not ranking for a particular keyword that you're trying to. So let me know how I can help.
I love that. It's like an episode of Scooby-Doo. We're solving mysteries now.
There you go.
Beautiful, my
Okay,
friend. Steve, thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show. You stick around for me for 1 second, but for everybody else, thanks for being here today. I appreciate
You
it.
bet, Jim. Thanks for having me. Have a great day, everyone.
Awesome. Yeah. Folks, until next time, grow big or go home.